Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Hello, Nick. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing so good. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to first start off by asking how you describe yourself and what it is that you do.
Probably the best way I describe myself is that I'm quiet and extremely creative. And what I do is I'm a designer by trade. I went to college for it, so the first thing I did was start freelancing, and then I went into e-commerce with TyypoPrints, which is about making motivational typographic print products for homes and offices. And spawned throughout my creation, I decided to even create a podcast because I'm all about motivational and pushing myself. So now I am learning about pushing others through the Don't Quit podcast that I host weekly. So it's definitely been an adventure ever since.
Wow, yeah, you're definitely a busy person these days.
Yeah, I would say it flexes on and off depending on my email schedules.
Okay, I gotcha. So were there any experiences that you had early on that planted the seed for your design career?
Yes. Ever since I was little, I was always creative, drawing, doing a lot of painting. But when it came to the actual career part, it was always really difficult for me to figure out what is it that I want to do for the rest of my life. And when you're in high school, that's such a difficult question to answer. And, I would say graphic design found me, as I didn't necessarily choose it because I always thought that was something that you combine technology with art. I was also really big in technology at the time. So I always figured, why not combine the two? And it wasn't really until my first year of college that I really knew what it meant to be a graphic designer. So I was so fortunate from day one that it found me and I was able to proceed from there on.
Okay. Well, so would you then walk me through the journey of your early design career in undergrad up into your early jobs?
Yes. I didn't really start working my internships until my junior year of college. I was with a lot of nonprofits, my local food bank, Humane Society, World Trade Center.
Ooh, nice. Wait, I'm sorry. Why did you pick nonprofits in the early days?
They were, not only did they have really bad design and marketing, but they were just a lot easier for me to approach.
Okay.
Yeah, they were so small. So whenever email sent to them, they definitely received it, unlike any other big company.
Okay, sure.
It just gets lost,
yeah.
And especially if you have to deal with HR. So it was pretty much the lowest fruit on the hanging tree.
Okay, I got you. And did you volunteer your time or did they pay you?
I was volunteered.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're so small that a lot of them were actually breaking even at the time.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Let's see. And that's when I got my initial experience. And shortly after, I started doing more freelancing because I'm starting to realize I'm looking at job postings in my local area for design, and there really isn't very much. I've already come to the conclusion that my area is kind of terrible for this. So I already just had to take matters in my own hands about finding work because design was my passion. And I'll admit I had too much pride a little bit at the time to say that maybe I should choose another career just in case it doesn't work out.
Okay.
I'm part of me agrees and part of me disagrees still to this day if that was really the right decision, just go full on freelancing, even though at the time dealing with student loans is kind of difficult. So I'm just still kind of iffy if that really was right.
Okay.
But I'm still here. I'm still doing good. So I guess one could argue it did work out in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So once I started freelancing, that's when I started becoming more a part of the town, and I realized how much more effective of marketing it is through personal connections and referrals. That's pretty much the biggest impact for any freelancer success.
Okay. When you first started freelancing,
yes,
were there books or anything that you read that helped you for it, or you just kind of figure it out as you went along?
Oh man, I probably spent a year reading on freelancing blogs.
Okay.
Before I even started.
Okay. Were there any particular that you really, really liked?
Yes. One was at the time was Graphic Design Blender. They are now renamed to Milo, I believe. They definitely their early work is definitely fantastic. Not so much about their latest. Mm-hmm. But overall, it gave me a good sense of what it meant to be a freelancer and how to do with the contractual work and the personal relationships, stuff school didn't really teach me at the time. Okay. And but of course, even still practicing that, learning all that for a full year before I even started, I definitely learned first place that it was definitely going to be a difficult journey. Because, even it involves a lot of sales, and, I'm not the most outgoing person. So, I kind of really had to buy into myself to realize, man, if you really want to get noticed and know people, you really have to put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. So how did you do that? Because I know that there are a lot of people who are introverted, and I am one of those people. How did you get out of your own way in that sense and get out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there?
I started small just by writing emails to people.
Okay.
Very, even still to this day, I'm very scared to call people sometimes. But, even still, I have to do that sometimes. But, but I feel like email is kind of the halfway point of communication, but be able to do it on your leisure to make sure that you get it right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely say is for introverts, definitely look into emails, and definitely, just tell yourself that, worst case scenario for emails is you just don't get a response really. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you can't just send another one.
Sure. Were you also going to live networking events, or did you primarily focus on emails in the beginning?
Yeah, I went to some live events starting out. Mm-hmm. I think they're all right. It's just that, I'm just not very too fond of my location. So if you totally can, I absolutely recommend it. Okay. Just because do it face to face, but there's nothing necessarily wrong doing with emails too, just because it's just so convenient. Mm-hmm. But I do feel it's definitely a bit of a science and an art to write a good email that actually gets open and actually converts to an actual client.
Yeah. Would you then tell me about the journey from your freelancer and then what made you make the decision to start TyypoPrints?
It actually wasn't too far from my freelancing that when I was doing some consultations to my clients about how they sell their products, I kind of figured, a lot of my ideas of what I've learned sounds good in theory, but I wasn't 100% sure if they worked out. So that's kind of how I started making my own prints, just to see if what I know about branding actually works for what I do. And I was actually able to get a few sales because of my design work on them. So that's when I already figured wow, this is actually easier than doing sales and working with other business owners.
Okay.
So that's when I started to perceive that more of the business to consumer was a better fit for me. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I started to do a bunch of research about, dealing with digital products and dealing with actual shipping and the digital marketing side of that, because that's just a entirely new industry that I was already diving myself into. But I was so passionate about doing it because it just felt more natural to me. Okay. So when I look back, I really should probably have started that sooner.
I gotcha. So tell me about TyypoPrints then. So what is it that makes that different from other places?
Oh man, what I love about TyypoPrints is that it's so original based on the ideas and the quotes that have been used, because I'm just tired of all the Gandhi quotes and the Steve Jobs quotes. Like, they're all great and all, but like everyone's heard of them. They're so boring that like, man, let's have something that people can hang in their house and, and actually be proud of. So that's why I really like dive like hours into my work, because there's a lot of people out there who can just bang out a t-shirt like in 5 minutes, but like no one really wants to wear that. No one wants to be proud of owning that. So that's why I always feel when you got to create a product that like people are actually going to wear, you're like, they must be proud to wear it.
Yeah.
So and it really helps with marketing, that if you're going to make a product so good, like it makes the marketing side of it even much easier. So I definitely work more on the product than the actual marketing side of it, because it just goes so much easier.
Oh yeah. So with the products, do your quotes, are they primarily on T-shirts? Do you also print them out on other things as well, or is it just primarily T-shirts?
All my print designs are on actual posters. 3 different sizes, T-shirts, caps, and I'm just about to release them in dog apparel.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, no, I'm actually supporting my local humane society, so that was the reason why I started to push that, and that's gonna be available like within 2 weeks.
Oh, sure. And then during this process, when did you decide to start writing and publishing books?
Oh man. That's when I started, when I was doing my podcast, that I was writing at least 1,000 words a week, because that's how I write out my script, and then that's how I create my podcast with. And I realized, like, I'm doing some research about books that I felt like, maybe, I could start doing what I also love with illustration, and I started making children's books, because it was just such a good halfway point of me being a writer and as well as an illustrator of all the art I did. So I was able to publish 4 of them self-published in a year. So that's when I started to figure out, like, maybe I could actually publish an actual book. And it's definitely a step up, because, writing for children than writing for adults is a completely different market with different expectations. So with my constant writing of my podcast, I just figured out, did the math, like maybe if I can do about 45,000 words and I write about 1,000 a week, I can get this done in about a month and a half. Well, that sounds great in theory. It definitely has been a little longer since that, but I definitely am on the right track of it, and it's almost done. I can't wait till it's done. About at the time, I have about 5,000 more words.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. It's a journey. I definitely say that a lot of people, everyone always reads the end product, but I feel to really appreciate you, I definitely suggest like really learn about the process of how to write a book, as well as contact the author about how they go through their process of it, because not knowing like the ideas of how they're influenced can really change the perspective about why they chose to write about something.
Okay. Gotcha. So your kids' books, I'm curious, what made you first decide to write children's books, and then what topics do you focus on?
Yeah, my introduction to children's books was just combining a lot of the things that I really enjoyed together, and I was doing a lot of illustrative work with my design. I would say my forte is writing in illustrative, and that's when, Pokemon is still fantastic, and I was always really influenced by that as a child. So I would say a lot of my artwork replicates that kind of charm that a lot of the younger audience really enjoys.
Okay.
So that's how I was able to really connect that for children so easily with my writing.
Okay, that's good to know. So tell me more about your thoughts on branding, because I know that you touch on this a lot on your website. So how do you approach branding? And if you're speaking with somebody new who is a creative, how do you encourage them to brand themselves?